If only I had this Rolex Daytona, but it's $150,000.
Hey you, the watch-obsessed girl down there? Do you want a
Me?
Daytona?
Yeah, I want a Daytona.
For $60?
$60? Are you kidding me? Yeah. I mean, seeing as I definitely have the funds to buy a Rolex Daytona.
Well, I have the perfect solution. Introducing the Pagani Daytona. It's a total spec monster, and you will most definitely forget all about that pesky Rolex because this is just better.
That's the dream that Pagani's trying to sell you. Let's see if this $60 watch is truly worth your hard-earned cash.
So this has a 40mm case diameter alongside a 48mm lug-to-lug with male end links, and you would think that this watch would wear larger due to those end links, but weirdly, it actually wears, I would say, a little bit smaller than its other Pagani counterparts that have the same lug-to-lug due to the curvature of the male end links. This also has a sapphire, yes, you heard me right, sapphire crystal, words that a Seiko fanboy could never utter. It has a ceramic black tachymeter bezel, and 2 screw-down pushers alongside a screwed-down crown and a screw-down case back, affording you a supposedly 100-meter water-resistant watch, but I wouldn't be too sure about that considering it has the Pagani Design Factory stamp of assurance, and I'm not too sure how assured I would be from that. This also has a oyster-esque bracelet with polished center links and brushed outer links with a milled clasp, and this milled clasp has 4 points of micro adjustment. And you know what? This micro adjustment is a bit of a pain in the neck, and I'll get to that a little bit later in this video. And it also has a diver's extension for all the times that you need to go diving with your chrono. But in all seriousness, the diver's extension does come in handy when, it gets a little bit hotter outside and your wrist expands, or maybe you ate a little bit too much at dinner. And it also is powered by the Seiko VK63 Mecha Quartz movement. So for all of you with quartzophobia and the specific type that has a fear of a ticking chrono hand, no need to fear because this watch won't do that. I would say that this chrono hand is equivalent to like a margarine. It's not as smooth as butter, but it's close to it. I noticed that a lot of watch YouTubers such as Teddy Baldassare and You're Terrific and a whole bunch of other watch YouTubers do a fantastic job at describing watches in such visceral detail. And what I'm trying to say is that it's actually quite difficult to describe the emotions that a particular watch elicits in words. So the age-old phrase, "a picture is worth 1,000 words," is especially true when it comes to watches. And I also noticed that AliExpress watches don't get this sort of treatment. The videos about AliExpress watches tend to be, here's the price, here's the specifications, done deal. So I am gonna try to give the AliExpress side of the market the same sort of treatment. Here's my best shot of this. So the monotone black and white colors are pretty average looking, and it doesn't elicit much awe from the average onlooker. However, the beauty really stems from the long-term wearer's perspective. I kind of got sort of bored of the watch and the plain design, so it lived in the back of my watch box for a few months. And then I picked it up again because I realized that it would be the perfect driving companion. And once I started wearing it regularly and seeing it in different lighting scenarios, I really began to appreciate it. So the way that the black ceramic contrasts with the white dial is visual bliss, especially in the sunlight. And the meteorite dial complements this experience with its ever-changing appearance. So what I'm trying to say is that in the sun, it has a warmer glow, and during the night or in less optimal lighting settings, it looks a little bit cooler. And I would say it's akin to kind of like a chameleon, and it takes on the character of the light surrounding it. And I know that does kind of sound obvious and not very unique, but for some reason, this watch does it like no other. However, I do think that the main component to this shape-shifting appearance is the dial. So even though this is a faux meteorite dial, you can really grow to appreciate all the intricate cuts from the naked eye. And I don't know about you, but 90% of the time I'm looking at this watch, it's from these two eyes. So at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is that this watch is very versatile, considering it's just a black and white watch from afar. But when you come to own it and you look at it in a whole bunch of different lighting scenarios, you come to realize all the little intricacies of the watch and the way that it plays with the light, not just the dial, even though I did hone in on that. Also the bracelet with the mixture of polishing and brushing. I think that you can really come to kind of gaze at it a few times in the day. If you're interested in this watch, I'll have an affiliate link in the description down below. It would really help out the channel, and it comes at no extra cost for you. So here is the real reason that Pagani's, or just AliExpress watches in general, are so popular. So the sad, the tragic, the terrible reality for the average watch collector is that we want and daydream about these astronomically priced watches, but we don't have $150,000 just lying around to buy a meteorite Daytona. That's exactly where this watch comes to play. So just to set the scene and give you some context about the current watch buying arena, is that I'm currently shopping for a good $300 watch, Canadian dollars that is. I really wanted to get a name brand watch from the likes of Orient, Seiko, etc. And I knew that I would have to make some concessions in terms of specifications. And I was surprised, however, by how many concessions would be necessary to acquire one of these big brand name watches. AliExpress watches have more appealing designs and have obviously better specifications compared to the respective Seiko and Orient alternatives at the price point. Another thing to keep in mind is that I am a member of the Itty Bitty Risk Committee, which makes it more difficult for me to find watches because I am looking for a watch 40 millimeters and under. And when you look at this affordable Seiko catalog, you have to pay around double the price for the equivalent of an NH35 with a hard Lex crystal and just poor quality control and a pretty boring design, if I'm being honest. And it just doesn't seem all that appealing when I could buy a micro rotor watch from Nobini at the same price point, or an original design San Martin at 39 millimeters when the equivalent Seiko is 42. I am having some trouble finding non-diver or diver-esque watches or dress watches that are under $300 from these big name brands, with the exception of course, the Orient Bambino. I know there's a huge fan base around it. I'm not as drawn to it. The reason I'm not looking for a diver or dress watch is because, well, I already own one of each. And even though I do a ton of diving, and I get invited to the most exquisite and amazing events, I find that one dive watch and one dress watch will suffice. Brands such as Seiko and Orient, I find, are really slowing down in terms of innovation. They're just constantly rehashing the same old designs, especially Seiko, with higher prices. And there just seems to be a lot more variety at the lower price point on AliExpress. And that was just my little spiel about why I can't find good variety or smaller designs with these big name brands. So if you want to see some more photos of watches, I would definitely recommend checking out my Instagram. And if you want to answer some polls, Watch Crunch is the place to be at. This isn't sponsored, I just have an account on there and I post a bunch of polls. The first pro I would say is that it is super, super cheap. In this economy, $60 can disappear in an instant. At least that's what I'd like to tell my family. The second pro is the great design, dare I say. It has a combination of the meteorite dial and an oyster bracelet. So you can't get that with Rolex. You either get a ceramic bezel with an oyster flex with the meteorite dial, or a steel bezel with an oyster bracelet with the meteorite dial. And usually when it comes to these companies, they just copy and paste. They put it in the photocopying machine and just kind of continue on from there. There is some sort of thinking, I guess, in the factory when it came to this watch, when they combined the two ideas. And it also just shimmers in the light, as I mentioned before. The third pro is the great build quality. I have already regurgitated the specifications, but everything just feels solid. The fourth thing is how it's hassle-free, it's battery-powered, and I'm just not worried about damaging it. And the fifth thing is you get a higher-end design for cheap. That is appealing for a lot of people. The sixth thing is, getting a chronograph. You have a smooth chrono hand, a mega quartz chronograph for $60 that's powered by a Seiko movement. Okay, let's talk about the cons. The way that this sapphire crystal was placed is that it was placed above the bezel, making it more prone to scratching. Also, the micro adjust, as I talked about before, was so bad that I had to fiddle with it with a piece of floss like a mad dentist. So for some reason, I think that the battery got loose at one point in time, but by the second month of wearing it, it just started working again. But I think that the reason it went back to normal is just like a kid learning how to walk, it got a good thunk on the floor and it reset everything. Another con, of course, is the fact that it doesn't have an original design and it also has no history. And again, criminals might mistake it for the real deal. The conclusion: if you're okay with having a completely stolen design and you're fine with having a watch with no history, then not every piece needs to have significant horological baggage. If you're good with mega quartz, if you're the type of person to want to wear this and beat it around without having to worry about the cost of your watch, I think that's kind of the true beauty of this watch. If you're the type of person to be satisfied with one homage, or you only have $60 to spend, so basically if you know that you'll buy more than one Daytona homage, then I would say save up and buy another watch with a more original design. You get a great design, although it's copied, at an affordable price, and this just makes it a great everyday wear. If you are more of a GMT Pepsi type person and you don't really like the Daytona, I would definitely recommend you go check out that review.